Welcome to Down to Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is Ms. Jenny, and I am your astrologer. This is the monthly horoscope for January of 2024. Yes, 2024. And this is a significant month because Pluto will be transitioning out of Capricorn and into Aquarius for a long stay. So let's get started and see what all of this means. Alrighty, so first thing I'm going to apologize. Today is January 1st, and I'm trying to get this video done and out for you. And it probably would have been, well, better if I had this done and prepared earlier. So January 2nd, about the time that you're going to see this video, Mercury will have officially stationed direct. Yes, my friends, Mercury will have come out of its retrograde status and march its little mercurial feet forward. Woohoo! Now, while this is happening the very next day, so they're kind of happening together, we're also carrying a quarter moon at 13 Libra on January 3rd, 2024. This particular week, as we start the month, has a lot of portent and energy. There's a whole lot going on here. There's more than meets the eye. So let's take a look at this and see what's happening. Starting with not Mercury, but Mars, my friend. Starting with Mars. Mars is out of bounds all month. And for those of you who don't know what that means, when a planet is out of bounds, it is at its more extreme expression. Because typically, what that means is the planet is so far out in declination that it is out of reach. It's not really interacting with anything. It's kind of like a child without supervision. Imagine that you have a planet being its natural essential nature without any restraint, or even more of who and what it is. In this particular case, it will be Mars that is more of who and what it is all month long. Oh boy. Now, this can be good, this can be bad, this can be in between. We're going to talk about how this might impact us through the month in a moment. But understand that Mars is unleashed this month. So, and this is how we're starting the month off as Mercury goes direct. Now, I want you guys to see this for a second. So Mercury station is direct today, for you today, January 2nd. As Mercury stations direct, it will do so right here with that out of bounds Mars, right? So if you can imagine Mercury and Mars literally joining hands or joining forces and making a run for the border, this is pretty much what this is going to feel like. So Mercury has everything to do with decision making and schedules and plans and all sort of stuff, very mercurial things, and combined with this really super steroid, like pumped up Mars, because Mars is out of balance, these two are going to be very, very energetic. And here's what we're going to keep an eye on. So with Mercury and Mars together in sign of Sagittarius and Mars out of balance, Mercury making station direct, and all of this happening simultaneously while there's a quarter moon occurring, we know that at this time, literally coming out of the gate for the beginning of the month, 2024, well, hello there. We've got some major decisions and actions that are going to be taken on a meta level and on a minor level. You may even find yourself suddenly feeling the need to get in there and purge, right? Literally go through and get rid of the dead weight, because Mars loves to be streamlined and Mercury does not like drag. So between the two of them, you may find yourself more energized to get rid of stuff that's just dead weight in your life, that's like hanging around like an anchor. Because at the same time, this quarter moon is decisions. Anytime with quarter moons, we make decisions, and this quarter moon is in cardinal signs, which absolutely further emphasizes action, taking action, making decisions and taking action, which is very in keeping with this Mercury station conjunct this out of bound Mars, which is thinking and making decisions and acting on them. So we've got a whole lot of energy starting out the month where we're all purging closets and drawers and everything else, and making decisions once and for all that, this is the plan and this is what we're going to do. Now, with that said, my friend, Sagittarius, just so you know, rules a number of things, right? But Sagittarius rules highways, freeways, anything that allows long distance travel, truckers, right? Big rig truckers, whoop, whoop. Things that are, airplanes, things that carry across long distances. That's what Sagittarius rules. Gemini, its opposite sign, rules local traffic, small, immediate community neighborhood things. With Mercury stationing direct on top of Mars out of bound in the sign of Sagittarius, what I would look for are the possibility of a couple of things becoming very, very prominent or significant, or, a cautionary tale, as it were. One, anything that has to do with long distance travel. So if you are a trucker, you know somebody drives trucks for a living, or you travel interstates and freeways, this is a very important time, this very first week of the month, to do a lot of defensive driving, because there's going to be a whole lot of bad drivers out there that think it's the Autobahn, right? And we don't need any of that. And also, too, with this is specifically for, and this I think really more applies to people who drive big rigs, but certainly, everybody should be aware of this. Mercury with Mars here will simultaneously be squaring Neptune. And what that says to me is that there's going to be a whole lot of blind spots, right? Where people, so if you drive a truck, you've got huge blind spots, and people love to drive in your blind spot. So there's going to be more of that with the big rig drivers. With other people, it's going to be literally people coming out of nowhere, trying to pass from the right lane instead of the left, and just literally people in your blind spot as you're traveling. So be aware of that. And again, be extra, extra defensive driving this first week of the month. Also, too, Sagittarius rules both the military and law enforcement, in case you didn't know, because it's Jupiter ruled sign. So we may see more deliberate, although I don't know that there's such thing as not deliberate military action, but for whatever reason, this will be significant. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Significant, deliberate military action around the time of this quarter moon on the 3rd. Mercury going direct like this with Mars, and all this happening with this quarter moon suggests that someone is being given permission. It's almost like someone literally has been given permission to do the thing they've been chomping at the bit to do. Now they get to do it. So let's keep an eye on that and see what happens. The other thing is that there's a lot of energy with that Mercury-Mars conjunction, with Mercury stationing direct, Mars being out of bound, and because it's squaring Neptune, this typically involves water, right? There's a suggestion, very strong suggestion, that this can involve water. Now, I know today I heard on NPR, they were talking about, I think, a 7.5 Richter scale earthquake off of Western Japan, and they were saying that it could take up to a week for the aftershocks from that earthquake to hit, which could in turn create tsunamis on the western shore of Japan, which makes perfect sense with this particular combination of things. This Mercury station with an out-of-bound Mars here squaring Neptune, which is bodies of water, would absolutely suggest that we're going to have some type of waterway catastrophe, or certainly crisis happening, and maybe in multiple places. So we'll keep an eye on that, because this is in effect all week long, right? So figure January 1st to January 7th. Some other things that we're looking at for this. Now, with this particular quarter moon, it's actually a good quarter moon, right? So we've got the quarter moon here. Now, this quarter moon also simultaneously, the sun sets up a trine to Jupiter and then follows that with a trine to Uranus. And the moon sets up a nice sextile to this problematic Mercury-Mars conjunction. So this suggests to me, one, that this particular quarter moon, whatever comes with this quarter moon, whatever actions are decisively taken or given permission to move forward with during this quarter moon, there is the possibility that there are good things that can come from this. With the sun trining Jupiter like this offers us the opportunity to make progress, because Jupiter is progress and so is Uranus, right? With the sun simultaneously following up with a trine to Uranus immediately behind it, this also suggests breakthroughs, right? Breakthroughs, turning a corner, getting to the other side of something, finally getting past something. So this Jupiter-Uranus right here, trining this sun as part of its quarter moon, offers us the suggestion that there is the possibility of breakthroughs and progress occurring with this quarter moon, right? Which is exactly what I want to hear, because we've already got enough going on with this Mercury-Mars nonsense, okay? Now, the moon, as I said, this moon that is part of the quarter moon sets up a sextile to that Mercury-Mars. Now, see, this Mercury-Mars, we really want to keep an eye on it, because they're literally two little Bonnie and Clyde renegades kind of doing whatever they want. They're very powerful, they're very dangerous, but neither one of them, Mercury nor Mars, are given to long-term thought or, discipline or responsibility. Bonnie and Clyde. So we really want to keep an eye on that. Anything that will help facilitate using that energy in a more productive way is always a good thing. The good news is this quarter moon, that moon that's part of the quarter moon, sets up a sextile to that Mercury-Mars, which gives us the possibility that some of this energy can be used constructively for all sorts of things. Not completely sure what, but it's there. So it's not, these two planets are not running amok by themselves, right? Like literally out of control Bonnie and Clyde characters. They are connected to the moon as part of this quarter moon. So whatever it is that's unleashed with this Mercury station direct and this Mars out of bound together right here, there is the possibility, because it's connected to the moon, there's a connection, there's an aspect here, that we can get something really, really good out of this. So keep your fingers crossed and think good thoughts. Okay, some of the other things that are going to be happening while all of this is playing out in the backdrop, I want you to notice something. The other thing that's happening is that Venus and Saturn will be in square with each other. This is not the happiest of positions, because Venus and Saturn have very different personalities. They don't get along well because they're very, very different planets. When Venus and Saturn are hooked together, in this particular case by square, it can exaggerate some things we don't want exaggerated, and create issues we don't want to have to deal with. So feelings of isolation and loneliness may reach their absolute peak this week. What I would say is that if you have friends that you know, or family that you know, that are already a little isolated or a little not having the most robust support system around them, this might be a good week to stay in touch with them and just kind of be there for them. You know what I mean? If this is you, right, because you're an introvert, because you just moved to an area because all your friends have died off, like pick a reason, and you're really feeling that loneliness and isolation, you may be feeling it even more acutely this week. And rather than telling you to just ignore it and it'll be fine, whatever, what I would say, because this is a wildly productive month and we're starting off gangbusters, literally getting stuff done if you choose to do so, this would be a great time to look, if this comes up, to look at your life and how you have it structured and start making some serious decisions about how you can make changes to the way your life is structured so that you're not feeling so alone and isolated. So take those feelings, because they're going to be there, and use them to examine how things are put together in your life and how you can make some changes so it's not nearly as deafening when you hear the deafening silence, as it were. Okay, so that is how we're starting the month off. Now, things that I want you to understand when we look at Mars being out of bounds, there's a number of ways this can play itself out. One, we know Mars rules aggression and hostility and combat and conflict and pugilism, and So we can absolutely expect some people to not manage this energy well and literally let it ride them like a voodoo loa, kind of taking over. And they're going to be more hot-headed, more impulsive, more destructive than usual, or more easily triggered. Some people are going to be really easy to trip their triggers right now. Um, I don't know that there's much we can do about people like that except avoid them, right? So there's that. The other things that Mars rules is the libido. Woohoo, the libido. So for those of you who are active, healthy and active in relationships or pursuing relationships, you may find that male lusty energy is really like working. So this can be a very sexy time. This can be a very sexy time, but understand that the energy that you're feeling, this is not love. I mean, maybe in the future or maybe before this or whatever, but this is all about root chakra, testosterone fuel, sex drive, libido, right? So this month, people are really feeling themselves, especially the men. Oh my God, no matter how old they are, young or old, they're all feeling like they're 19 and invincible. So be aware. Be aware. Okay. The other thing that Mars rules is action, right? Taking action. So a lot of us are going to be feeling energized and fueled and literally ready to just go do something, get off the porch and go do something. So that's a fantastic thing. Mars also rules vehicles and automobiles, specifically fast things. So fast cars, helicopters, this sort of thing. So be careful on the roads. Be careful on the roads. So there's that. The other is that Mars also rules surgery and cutting. So it is possible that we may have more medical emergencies this first week of the month as well. If you have not been taking care of yourself, this would be a great time to listen to your body. And also check to see if you even have a plan if something happened to you, God forbid. These are all things that may be accentuated and highlighted and brought to the forefront, as we kick the month off. The other thing is that Sagittarius also rules the military and law enforcement. Now, law enforcement is ruled by both Sagittarius and Gemini, depending on which branch and whatever. It gets a little weird, right? A little complicated. But ultimately, anything involved in a uniform and the upholding of principles is Sagittarius. So, military and law enforcement, and oftentimes people in law enforcement go into law enforcement from military backgrounds. So there's no big stretch there. It makes all kinds of sense. So we may see a lot more military action or law enforcement presence this first week of the month. Just be aware and remember, some people are going to be more easily have their triggers tripped. So you're more easy to trip people's triggers right now. So maybe if you have to deal with law enforcement and it's not because you're married to them or serving them coffee, remember that they typically don't show up anywhere where people are having a good day. And some of these guys are just nuts. They're not good people. They wear uniforms, but they're not good people. So, be very mindful of the fact that we don't know who we're dealing with until we're dealing with them. So, be aware and be careful. Be careful. Now, with Mercury, Mars squaring Neptune in Pisces, in Sagittarius squaring Neptune in Pisces, the other thing too is I want you guys to be aware that communicable or contagious anything is a real possibility right now in bigger numbers. I mean, these things are always a possibility all the time, but they may be more virulent and more easily spread and more huge, like epidemic sort of stuff, right? God bless our children, little germ factories. So it could be anything from the common cold or whatever, weird germs you pick up from your kids from, that they share with the other kids that they go to school or daycare with. Or it could be all sorts of unpleasant nasties because we're not, practicing the most safe hygiene. So wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, mask up if you are immunocompromised or, or you're in areas where that's an issue. Because remember, colds and flus pass by respiratory droplets as well. So maybe a mask is not a bad thing. And also too, for those of you who are, intimately active, for the love of God, please wrap that stuff up. Oh, dear Lord. Remember, there is a real issue right now with incurable, listen to my word, incurable gonorrhea. And I think also chlamydia now too. There's incurable chlamydia. This literally means if you get that particular strain of those two STDs, you're never getting rid of it. There's nothing we have that will fix that, literally short of setting you on fire. So if you are active and irresponsible, this is a great time to stop being an irresponsible horse's ass, right? If you are involved with somebody who, is irresponsible and you tend to turn a blind eye to these things, listen, I'm not judging. I'm just saying this would be a really good time to make sure that they are practicing a lot more responsible behavior than they might have in the past. Okay. And while all of this is going on, remember, Pluto is at 29 degrees Capricorn and about to change signs. So Pluto at that 29th degree and about to change signs feels a lot like Pluto making a station, except a lot more powerful, because literally right now it's about to walk out the door, close and lock the door behind it, never to come back again in our lifetime. This is a big, big deal. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Mars out of bounds, try harder. So I want to talk about this Mars out of bounds for a second, because I think it's kind of important to understand that it's not always bad, right? So we know Mars out of bounds is like Mars on steroids. It's like the out of control kid that nobody can quite rein in or harness or, hold back or restrain, right? But luckily, this Mars out of bounds, this Mars on steroids, is right now hooked into a lot of planets, which means that we do have some restraining influences to help control what direction it's going in and how it's expressing itself, as it were. So we've got the reinforcements there to help us manage this Mars. This particular Mars will be sextiling Saturn and then sextiling Neptune. Saturn and Neptune both being in Pisces at the early and the late degree. Mars sextiling Saturn will give us the opportunity to utilize this energy to make meaningful structural changes, right? So if you're looking to make changes in your life or to clean house or to figure out how to solve a problem, that Mars sextile Saturn is going to give you the energy and the drive to keep working at it until you get this thing solved. That's a beautiful thing. When Mars moves down and sextiles that Neptune, simultaneously, like immediately after this, right? Because they're both in Pisces. When Mars hits that Neptune by sextile, right, what it also does, it gives us the opportunity to get flashes of divine insight. So if you're really struggling with a knotty problem or like a Gordian knot that you can't quite figure out how to untangle in your life, or you literally are just overwhelmed, you just don't know how you're going to fix this, right? If you get quiet and tune in and turn on, that Mars out of bounds sextile Neptune will bring you a flash of inspiration or insight, or a lucky break literally out of left field. So this particular Mars is bringing really good stuff with it. Now, this Mars out of bounds will also trine Jupiter and trine Uranus, both of those planets being in Taurus. So when Mars out of bounds trines Jupiter, this gives us a lot of luck, a lot of energy, and also a lot of spirited enthusiasm for sport or competition or, bigger, better, faster, woohoo, right? So expansion, that's the word I'm looking for. Mars out of bounds trining Jupiter is very much about expansion, the desire to expand our territories, our horizons, our reach, to see how much further out we can go and how much more we can claim. Now, this can be good or this can be bad, I suppose, depending on what it is that you're trying to claim and how much further out you're going to go. But it's absolutely going to put a lot of energy into Mars-Jupiter things. Jupiter also, remember, rules the law and ethics. So there may be a much more spirited, enthusiastic press or push to do the right thing, Jupiter, right? And also remember, it's sextiling Saturn. So that's a good thing. I'm all about it. I am all about it, right? So these two things are going to work together. Now, because Jupiter and Uranus are also both in the same sign, Taurus, Mars out of balance will then move on to trine Uranus. And again, it's going to be the same feel that we had with Neptune. So these flashes of insight, these moments of brilliance, where we suddenly come up with a solution that we didn't have before, is literally imminent and possible and within reach. So allow yourself the permission to think creatively and out of the box and to consider things that would seem completely ridiculous, because that thing may leapfrog into something else and take you to exactly the ingenious solution that you're looking for. Sometimes we're so fixated on looking for an answer to a problem or a question, in a way that makes sense to us, that we don't see that the real solution is up ahead or over to the left or to the right. And it doesn't make sense at first until you put it into action and you're like, oh, wait, yeah, now I see it, right? So give yourself permission to kind of open up to that. So this is your Mars in Capricorn out of balance right here. Get a bit of color, okay? It's going to sextile Saturn and Neptune. It's going to trine Jupiter and Uranus. Saturn and Neptune and Jupiter and Uranus are making a sextile to each other. And what that does is it connects all of these, literally connecting the dots here. It connects all of these and creates a situation where we may actually very well be able to make like a daisy chain of events and circumstances and ideas and solutions that will create something much bigger than we could have come up with on our own in a singular thing. But again, Mars is out of balance. Mars is what connects all of these things. So Mars will lead the way. So there's good things there with that Mars. Okay, now when we move down to the week of like January 11th-ish, we've got a new moon at 20 Capricorn, which will be sextiling Uranus. So the new moon at 20 Capricorn sextiling Uranus, again, flashes of insight, genius, divine inspiration. Sometimes the most unusual things come up with Uranus involvement, especially this new moon. So this could potentially start us on a whole new cycle, okay, where, look at these goats, where the completely bizarre or unexpected is maybe not so bizarre and unexpected. Maybe these things are real possibilities, if we just shift our idea of what's possible and understand that everything goes the way we expect it to. So the other thing is that with a new moon sextiling Uranus is it gives us a chance. This will give us a chance to have a breakthrough, which is fantastic. It won't be quite as jarring as we normally expect, but if we needed to wedge a door open, just find that just enough space to wedge our way into something to get in, right? This is the time that the opportunity will be there. Now, while this is going on with our new moon, Mars, remember the out of bound Mars, will be at its maximum declination. Mars will literally be as far out as it's going to go. So it will be extremely powerful at this time. One of the things that I would expect in this particular case is the unexpected rise of female warriors, literally women rising up to the challenge and taking people to task, or addressing a problem or solving a problem. So in any other time in the future, this would not be a big deal because it wouldn't be strange that women would be in this position. It would just be normal. Well, of course they would, right? Just men do it. Why wouldn't women do it? But in this day and age, we're not quite there yet. So seeing women step up to bat and taking things on, right, is still seen as novel and unusual because we don't see it often enough. So we may see the rise of that as we go through the month, and specifically down here closer to the 11th through 13th. While this is happening at the same time, Mercury will be entering the sign of Capricorn and simultaneously sextiling Saturn, right? So we've got this Saturn-Uranus thing going on, again, which speaks to matters of discipline and progress, right? Discipline and breakthroughs, discipline and truth, right? Commitment, responsibility, honor, obligations, and, authenticity, being real, right? And doing something about it. So this is going to be a really dynamic week. So if I were looking for any type of huge activity, well, actually, it's just going to be the entire month of January. It's just going to be exciting. So let's keep an eye and see how that plays out. And, oh, that was the other thing too. Also too, at this time with this new moon sextiling Uranus in Capricorn, right? Mars maximum declination and Mercury entering Capricorn and sextiling Saturn, blah, blah, blah. If you have to negotiate contracts or haggle or, work on some type of business discussion, right, or compromise, this is the time to do it. You're going to be much more effective. Things are going to be much easier and smoother to do. People might be more aggressive, but it's an energetic aggression that's very much about hammering out a win-win solution. So this is a great time for those of you who have to enter these types of discussions or debates or arguments or negotiations about things. So use that energy to your advantage and the timing. All right, now let's take a look at what's going on after this. Okay, now this is technically the big week, although I'm telling you, because Pluto and all the other planets take longer to move, we feel them well in advance. We've already been feeling this Pluto transition from the beginning of the month, but it's official January 19th to 21st. So what will happen is the Sun will conjunct Pluto at 29 Capricorn, and then when Pluto goes to 0 Aries, or I'm sorry, 0 Aquarius, the Sun will walk hand in hand with Pluto as they both shift into Aquarius. So this is a very, very important time, this January 19th to 21st, because these two are walking hand in hand right into a whole new world. Now, as this is going on, just prior to this date, we've got a quarter moon at 27 Aries on the 17th, okay? Now, that quarter moon, and again, quarter moons are action, they're decisions, there are things that we do, right? With this quarter moon in Aries of all things, and it's the last degree of Aries, right? As the Sun and Pluto are marching literally out the door from Capricorn, closing it behind it, and moving right into Aquarius, I will say that this is a really important time to be very aware of your surroundings. If there's going to be problems with the drooling mouth breathers, we know who they are. Right about this time, which is going to be January 17th through 21st, this is when they're most likely to be active, because this quarter moon in Aries, and especially those last degrees in Aries, is an echo of what we were dealing with during January 6th and the insurrection and the whole Trump administration. Oh my God. So if these guys, the disgruntled, unwashed masses, if they're going to act up right around here is when I would expect to see this. Okay, so it's the 17th through the 21st. So be aware of your surroundings. If you see anything suspicious, say something. You know how that goes. And also, too, Venus will square Neptune at this time on the 19th. Okay, right there. And, Venus square Neptune lends itself to delusion. It has a real loose relationship with reality and facts, which can be good if you're an artist or a writer, which can be bad, if you're a liar and people, expect you to tell the truth, or, you're involved in a cult. So this right here is going to fuel a lot of delusional thinking, And also, because Neptune's involved, there's going to be a lot of victim or martyr mentality, right? So like the Japanese kamikaze pilots that went on suicide missions, like the jihadist terrorists that, strap bombs to their backs, are on suicide missions. So we may see some people who feel like, it's their job in life to go on a suicide mission for some delusional cause that, in their head. Anyway, so I'm just saying this is these days, 17th through the 19th ish. These are hot spots for, the mouth breathers. So be aware. Now, after we get through that, we will move down here to the full moon at 5 Leo on January 25th. Now, with this full moon, Venus will have entered Capricorn a couple days before on the 23rd, and Uranus, remember, we feel the outer planets before they actually officially turn. Uranus will be stationing direct 2 days later on the 27th. So we're feeling that Uranus station. So what we're really looking at is that full moon in Leo as Uranus makes its direct station. That is pretty freaking potent. Hugely potent. So we can expect the possibility of some really explosive or, really wildly over the top, irrational responses to something. And so, anyway, so that's the other dates you're going to have to watch, is going to be down here between the 25th and 27th. So the dates I want you guys to circle the calendars, be very aware of surroundings, and Jesus, if you see something, say something. Don't look at something that looks a little odd and think that it's okay. It's going to be January 17th to 19th, and then again January 25th to 27th. These are the dates I want you to keep an eye on and be extremely careful and aware of your surroundings. There's also the possibility that we may have some major explosive action on a meta level with the governments around this time. Huge. This is going to be a huge month. So circle your calendars and be aware these are hot spots. So with the Sun-Pluto conjunction going from Capricorn to Aquarius, I really want to take a deeper look into this chart, see if I could get some more information. So this chart is set up for January 20th, 2024, more or less, right? So here's what we have. In this chart, I used the transneptunians and the asteroids, and these are the planetary pictures that we received. This is a busy week around that full moon. Ooh-wee. So the first thing is we have a grand cross. So here's our Sun-Pluto conjunction, right? That's going to be in operation for 2 or 3 days. This Sun-Pluto conjunction will now, at this time, set up a grand cross with Apollon, Jupiter, and Vulcanus. Now, some things we need to know about these planets, okay, and these asteroids. So Apollon has a lot to do with the market and commerce and business and horse trading. So economics, global economics, markets, all these things are going to be very significant and tied into the impact that this Sun-Pluto conjunction is going to bring with it, right? So this is absolutely going to act on that. The Sun-Pluto conjunction is stronger than Apollon, so it will affect the markets or commerce, but there's definitely a tie between the two. At the same time, because this is a grand cross, Apollon is opposing Jupiter in Taurus, right? So, or Jupiter. So Apollon opposing Jupiter absolutely has to do with futures, future shares, markets, commerce, right, on a big level, on a meta level, because the Sun and Pluto are involved. So we're not talking about like millionaires or billionaires. We're talking like octillionaires, if there was even such a thing, right? We're talking about global markets, mass, world-shaking, life-changing, like trajectory stuff when it comes to the markets and money. So we may have a banking or a financial issue again in a more serious way. And the thing to understand is that the global banks are all tied to each other. If one goes down, they all go down together. Literally, it's like a row of dominoes, right? Or tug of war. They're all connected to each other, so they can't afford to let each other fail. This is why we had to bail out Greece. Or well, we didn't, but they did. Anyway, it's like the euro, except we're all on a global euro and we don't know it. The thing about it, though, is with Sun and Pluto together like this, because the Pluto rules the things happening behind the scenes. right? There's a whole lot of things being moved around and manipulated and being managed behind the scenes that's going to involve banking, financial institutions, and global markets. I don't know what that is because I'm not an economist. Maybe somebody else knows better, but I do know, looking at this, there's a whole lot of behind the scenes, like maneuvering and managing happening right now because things are sort of kind of probably reaching critical mass. I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe don't want to know. I don't get enough sleep as is. Okay. All right. Now, what's interesting is that Vulcanus is involved. Now, Vulcanus rules precious metals. It rules iron smithing. It rules brute force. So mines, like coal mines, copper mines, things of that nature. Things that are underneath the earth as well. So Vulcanus has to do, I would suspect that somehow, because remember, it's markets, right? Let me get rid of this black. If we do planetary pictures, we know markets, right? Banking, things being manipulated or managed from behind the scenes that have to do with large global size issues when it comes to finance and these sorts of things, and now involving precious metals, mining, things that happen underneath the earth, things that require brute strength to draw out. So I don't know what that is, but this is really, really prominent at this time and is going to be a huge game changer. This is going to change everything, even if we don't know what's actually happening. The other thing that was happening during this time is we've got Venus and Ceres together, right? So that's right here. And they are also in a grand cross with Neptune, Juno, and Vesta. So Venus and Ceres are here opposing Vesta. Vesta is the asteroid for the goddess, and the keeper of the hearth, the flame, the sacred temple, the sacred prostitute, as it were, and Mary Magdalene, the virgin birth. So Venus and Ceres is also an asteroid that has to do with motherhood and the grains and womanhood and pregnancy. So Venus and Ceres opposing Vesta would suggest that one of the things that's going to be brought to the forefront around this time are matters that have to do with reproduction and women's sexuality. Which, given what we're dealing with all over the globe with, the attack on women's reproductive rights, that makes all kinds of sense. So that may be something that comes up in a big, big way. Now, also too, we have Neptune and Juno involved in this grand cross. Okay, so with Venus and Ceres, if we just look at the T-square, right, Venus, Ceres, Neptune, and Juno, one of the things that's going to be critical in this has a lot to do with married women, of all things. Married women are going to be a huge factor and influence in whatever this is going on that has to do with women and women's sexuality and their reproductive rights and control of their bodies. Now, Neptune and Juno in opposition to each other, unfortunately, usually suggests a sacrificial lamb, right? This really suggests people making, sacrifices for everybody else. And Neptune and Pisces also, sacrifices. These are all sacrifices. So I don't know how many more pregnant women we have to sacrifice on this altar of stupidity that these men are involving themselves in with this anti-abortion. But this is going to be a big problem and a big, big conversation at this time. So look for that to come up as well. Now, the other things that are happening at this time is a T-square with Saturn, Admetus, and trans-Pluto. So Saturn is here, Admetus is here, and trans-Pluto. Oh, sorry, Admetus is here. This is trans-Pluto. Okay, so with Saturn Admetus. With Admetus as a transneptunian, with Saturn and Admetus in square aspect like this suggests to me blockages or obstructions. There's going to be something that is being held up and it's just not going to move. There's no give here. There's no leeway. It's blocked, right? Deliberately. Now, kind of like Tommy Tuberville, that horse's ass. Anyway, I swear this country. Okay, so With that said, the other thing is Admetos also suggests things that are under the ground, and Saturn in Pisces has a lot to do with waste and poison and toxins. So I'm also curious if this is not going to suggest or describe or create a picture of issues where wastewater or toxins or poisons going into the water and coming back up again to become huge health issues for us is something that may be coming up at this time. So, for example, right, have you ever seen these creeks and little waterways where people like they go back there in the woods and they dump their garbage there because they don't want to take it to the dump and they think it's going to be fine, right? It's just go down with the water. And the problem is that the stuff that they dump back there, right, old refrigerators and tires and bicycles and who knows what else are dumping into these little creeks and rivers, right, and waterways, is the chemicals and stuff that all leaches into the water and it poisons the living things that live in the water, as well as soaks into the ground and comes back up. And that water travels somewhere, which means it's going right back into the water supply at some point. These are all problematic things, but you can't tell the Yahoo doing it that they are only thinking about themselves. So, but this whole thing about throwing things into the water and this waste being put under the ground or where it doesn't need to be and then seeping back up and becoming a real huge problem is what this looks like to me with a Saturn Admetos thing. Now, trans-Pluto, I don't know that much about. I know trans-Pluto is supposed to be like a Plutonian planet, even further out than Pluto. But we don't really have a lot of information about it. And with this, I'm wondering if one of the nuclear plants is not going to become a problem, if this is not radioactive waste that's going to become an issue at this time. I could be wrong. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But this definitely looks like poisoning of the soil or the water because of waste matter that's gotten into it that shouldn't have been there in the first place. All right. Now, also, the final aspect we have that's not a grand cross or a T-square, oh my God, what a relief, right? is Uranus. Uranus here is in opposition to Poseidon and Pallas Athene. Here's Poseidon, and here's Pallas Athene. Now, Poseidon is a transneptunian. Poseidon Athene is an asteroid. Uranus sits pretty much at the midpoint between the two, pulling in both their energies. Now, Poseidon is supposed to be like a bigger Neptune with no downsides. There's nothing negative about Poseidon. It's about illumination. Uranus is also about illumination. So the two together suggest that there's going to be a whole lot of light shed on something that would otherwise have been left in the dark to fester for a long time. So we may get the goods on a whole lot of stuff that we didn't even realize was sitting there all this time. So shedding light on something is what I'm getting with this Uranus-Poseidon opposition. With Uranus and Pallas Athene, this has a lot to do with justice, right? And what's right. Fighting for the underdog. So whatever this is that is happening may also involve social justice warriors. Woohoo! And because this is Taurus Scorpio, I would suspect, I could be wrong, we'll see, I would suspect this has a lot to do with the environmental activists, right, and the soil and the earth, and them trying to warn us. So there's something going on, and the environmental activists may become more prominent and get their day of vindication with this as something comes to light that would otherwise have remained hidden. So this is going to be a heck of a week as Sun conjunct Pluto, and they both slide from, do the cha-cha slide, go from Capricorn into Aquarius. Whew, golly day. Okay, and finally, just a little note about Pluto and Aquarius. I was going to do a whole thing of it, but yeah, I don't want to make this video too terribly long, and we can do a whole video about Pluto and Aquarius separately. So Pluto and Aquarius is complicated because Aquarius is complicated in that Aquarius is very mental. It's all academic. It's all in their mind. Aquarians pride themselves on being logical and, very intellectual and very detached, right? They're above sloppy emotions. The problem or the challenge, the dual-edged sword of Aquarius is that on the one hand, Aquarius is very much about the idea of humanity, the idea of things. Aquarius loves the idea of something. But in actual practice, Aquarius can be very dehumanizing. So the very humanity it says it loves in concept and idea it struggles with in actual practice, because that involves feelings and being considerate and compassionate and being human. And it's much easier for Aquarius to dehumanize people, because that makes it easier to catalog them, and sort them out and analyze them. So with Pluto and Aquarius, one of the things that we're going to be dealing with very much this year in a very pointed way is going to be the depersonalization and the dehumanization of the masses. And we're going to see this a lot with robotics. Amazon is a great example, because they're going to replace all those warehouse jobs with robots. They've been working on it, they're doing it, and we should see a huge, I could be wrong, but we should be seeing a huge rollout of robotic substitutions for humans in a lot of their warehouses, until they can get almost all of them completely filled with just robots. This is not good. This is not good for a number of reasons, but we'll have that conversation at a different time. So the thing about it is, if you've ever worked in an Amazon warehouse, one of the things that happens, because they've got horrible management, and the Bezos has a business model set up that literally feeds and reinforces the worst type of management. They expect people to perform in very robotic, high volume, high speed ways that is not natural to the human body, which is why Amazon has an alarming number of injuries, which, by the way, are not correctly reported. They hide those numbers. I worked at one briefly. It's horrible, the things that they do, and a lot of it's a shell game as far as the numbers of actual injuries that get reported. So because of the way they do things, they end up hurting a lot of their employees, or people leave, right? Because it's not natural. Human bodies are meant to work in ebb and flow, and there's a value to people that we need, because we live in a society where we're feeling very isolated and very lonely, and getting worse and worse and worse by the generation. So, when you hurt people and you expect them to behave like robots, it's very dehumanizing, Pluto and Aquarius, and it's at the expense of the humans that you're supposed to be serving, right? In this case, his employees and consumers. If people in the community are not working, how are they going to buy his products, right? Figure that one out, Batman. Okay, so that's a lot of what we're going to be dealing with this year. Like, one of the things you'll also be more aware of are these, as an example, right? The struggle to deal with people as people, not ideas, are these living dolls that they've started producing for people, mostly male consumers. These are life-size dolls that act as companions, except they're dolls. They don't talk. They don't have needs. They're not human. They're dolls. They look real, but they're not. And they've apparently been alarmingly popular. These people manufacturing these dolls are selling a lot of them. So we may see even more of them being sold, as these particular consumers of these living dolls struggle with dealing with another person and their very, very different needs, which may be contrary to their own. The ability to have compromise in relationships, to communicate, to make room and space in your environment and your life and your sphere of influence for other people to be different from you and still have a meaningful relationship with you. It's easy when it's a doll, because a doll doesn't need or want anything. It never says anything. You just project all your weirdo stuff on it, and that's it. So we might be seeing a lot more of that, where people are struggling with connecting and relating to each other in a meaningful way, which only exacerbates the loneliness and isolation that we feel. Which brings us to another thing that's very Pluto and Aquarius. What we may see is the rise of splinter or fringe groups, right, or cults. So Pluto and Aquarius is not one of those things where you've got like the lone wolf, like the Unabomber, living in a mountaintop thing by himself, writing manifestos. Pluto and Aquarius is much more about people who self-isolate in groups, right? So these smaller splinter groups or communities that people build around themselves, like these like that weirdo guy out in Waco, Texas, in his compound, right? So and all these things are everywhere. So we may be seeing more of that happening as Pluto has moved into Aquarius, where people are looking for other people to share space with, to have community with, to have some type of meaningful relationship where they feel like they're being understood. by multiple people. But all they're actually doing is reinforcing, their wackadoodle ideas, which are not based in anything close to reality, and reinforcing their inability to be flexible, to make space and room to have a meaningful relationship with other people who are different from themselves. So that's some of the stuff we're going to start seeing now with Pluto and Aquarius. Yeah, we got some fun times ahead of us. So we'll have a whole conversation about Pluto and Aquarius at another time. So for those of you who've never seen it, this right here, this is I think it's from the 1960s, it's a science fiction series. If you can find it, it's worth watching. Really good stuff. I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to watch it. And it's all about being in the future and all sort of stuff where, basically people are reduced to nothing, right? So the big quote or the famous line from the movie is that the protagonist is saying, "I am not a number. I am a free man." And that is the spirit of Pluto and Aquarius as we move into it. Because remember, my friends, power to the people. You are not a number. So while the rise of the machine is occurring, robotics, AI, literally all these robots and automated things replacing us for these jobs, the rage against the machine is definitely going to increase with it, because without us, those things have no reason to exist. They only exist because of us. We have more value than they do. And that's the thing that people need to keep in mind when they're building their business models. But, we'll see how that goes. It sometimes takes people a little longer to figure things out. And to quote Walt Disney, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Oh, by the way, did you know, I'm right on top of Pluto, getting ready to leave Capricorn and enter Aquarius this month. Disney also, at the same time, right now as we speak, is losing their trademark on a lot of their characters, like Mickey Mouse and some of the other Disney, creations, because they've had like a 100-year trademark on it, which I think somebody dropped the ball. I don't know what happened, because they're fighting to get an extension on it. And if they had done the paperwork correctly, they wouldn't need to fight to get an extension. It would have just happened. So somebody somewhere gaffed. Anyway, so they're about to lose their trademark on all this stuff, which is so telling, right? Because Pluto and Capricorn is about the concentration of power, in an hierarchy, like moving up the ladder to a point at the top, which is very much Disney, all the power concentrated, all being wielded by the people at the top. And of course, now that Pluto is leaving Capricorn, right, all that power is being redistributed, or in this case, those characters and the rights to them being redistributed to the masses. So I thought that was interesting. So here's what I want you guys to understand. This month is going to be a really productive month if you use the energy. So use that energy to your advantage. Don't let it get you down. Also, too, remember, as Pluto goes in Aquarius, we are starting a whole new evolutionary cycle. And it's literally about the power is in the hands of the people. And the big challenge is going to be, more than anything else, the big challenge is going to be finding ways to connect with other human beings in meaningful ways, because we're going to struggle with the idea of liking society, liking communities, liking humanity, but actually being able to do the work and have emotional flexibility to have relationships with people who have different opinions and different needs and different cultures and different histories than we do. So the temptation is going to be to self-isolate, either with living dolls that don't have any personality or needs or bodily functions or anything, and literally just an extension of our vanity and projections, or to self-isolate in small groups with other people who think and feel and see the world the same way we do, to the point that we lose our ability to communicate and deal with anybody who's not part of our little group, right? So that's the challenge that we have in front of us, is working through those issues, because it's all about connection and it's all about everybody together all at once. Okay, so that is your January report. And remember, a whole lot of hot, sexy time this month. People are really, really sowing wild oats and feeling it. So if you're out there playing, Make sure you're using protection. If you're not out there playing, still use protection. Wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, maybe wear a mask because there's a whole lot of contagious everything floating around this month. And it will be virulent. Okay? So, and you got enough to worry about. You don't need to be sick on top of everything else. All right, so that's it, my friends. I will see you guys next month. Questions, comments, suggestions, likes, dislikes, hit the little thumbs up, thumbs down, leave a comment, and or you might maybe subscribe. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.